Up next, we've got the latest hit from Veeam. It's climbing charts everywhere, and soon it's going to climb right into your heart. Here it is.
Well, dang. Ransomware had my data all jacked up. If only I had secure backup. Then I met you, Veeam, my AWS backup dream team. Yeah.
Good morning, AWS, and welcome to the AWS Morning Brief. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn, and this is the AWS Morning Brief, feeling an awful lot like it used to. By which I mean that last week, AWS had a storage day, and it feels like a rain after a drought. The world is new and shiny and a little bit moist. It featured a bunch of impressive releases that really we haven't seen in a long time. I welcome the change. We'll talk about it a bit more, but please continue the trend, Amazon. I wish you did more of this. You really can release things far more often than directly after Thanksgiving once a year. Let's dive in. AWS Distro for OpenTelemetry adds support for Amazon ECS in Amazon CloudWatch Container Insights and metrics support for AWS Lambda applications in Amazon Managed Prometheus Preview. It is impossible, without digging into this article, to determine without clicking whether it's real or generated by the fake totes-not-amazon.com fake AWS release announcement generator, because that is freaking word salad. Oh my God. AWS Systems Manager enables additional application management capabilities. That's right. Systems Manager Application Manager is such a bad name for a service offering that even AWS avoids using it in headlines like this one for feature announcements. Amazon EBS direct APIs now support creating 64 terabyte EBS snapshots. I didn't understand what raw photo format was when I got my first digital camera, so I used to email 64 terabyte snapshots by accident all the time. AWS Lambda now supports AWS Private Link in previously unsupported availability zones. Okay, I don't give a crap about Lambda's Private Link support. The actual news here is that availability zones are absolutely not at all the same within the US East, North Virginia, US West, Oregon, Asia Pacific, Singapore, Asia Pacific, Tokyo, Asia Pacific, Seoul, Asia Pacific, Mumbai, South America, Sao Paulo, Canada, Central, and EU London regions. I really want an authoritative list of which availability zones I should studiously avoid in those regions, please. This isn't to dunk on AWS. It's to guide new customers away from specific environments where they're likely to have a suboptimal experience before they find out the hard way. I don't think this is too much to ask. AWS Transfer Family simplifies managed file transfer workflows with low-code automation. I like this release, despite the fact that low-code clearly means without having to use a Lambda function to glue our stuff together over at AWS. Introducing new AWS Solution Provider Program incentives for AWS partners. You get money when your customers spend more on AWS is a conflict of interest in some ways. Look, I'm not accusing anyone of malfeasance here, but this feels an awful lot like incentivizing the deployment of managed NAT gateways to client accounts. Even the perception that this might be possible is one of the reasons why the Duckbill Group is not an AWS partner. Inspect subnet to subnet traffic with Amazon VPC more specific routing. Now, I want to call out that after this was released, we successfully cyberbullied AWS into not using that term in all caps. Now, I'm a big believer in making fun of Amazon service names for a few reasons. Most obviously, they're really bad names. Slightly less obviously is that nobody spent 18 months naming a service the way that they did building the service, and if they did, they probably should feel bad about it. And even less obviously is that it's a joke that anyone, no matter how they fare in terms of technical ability, can understand the joke and laugh along at home. All of which is to say, Amazon VPC more specific routing just leaves me for once with nothing snarky left to say. New Amazon EFS intelligent tiering optimizes costs for workloads with changing access patterns. And I gotta say, for some reason, I thought this was how EFS lifecycles already worked. And it looks like there are some caveats that mean I was wrong and was getting charged retrieval fees for infrequently accessed files that later became active again. This release makes the thing that exists work the way that I thought it did. On the plus side, in my environment, that misunderstanding appears to have cost me roughly 3 cents a month. I have already requested a refund. This episode is sponsored in part by our friends at Chaos Search. You could run Elasticsearch or Elastic Cloud or OpenSearch, as they're calling it now, or a self-hosted Elk stack. But why? Chaos Search gives you the same API you've come to know and tolerate, along with unlimited data retention and no data movement. Just throw your data into S3 and proceed from there as you would expect. This is great for IT operations folks, for app performance monitoring, cybersecurity. If you're using Elasticsearch, consider not running Elasticsearch. They're also available now in the AWS Marketplace if you'd prefer not to go direct and have half of whatever you pay them count toward your EDP commitment. Discover what companies like Klarna, Equifax, Armor Security, and Blackboard already have. To learn more, visit chaossearch.io and tell them I sent you just so you can see them facepalm yet again. New Amazon FSx for NetApp on tap. And I adore this so much. NetApp is the gold standard for NFS in production environments and has been for decades. If I can get this service offered in a more serverless way, where I don't have to think about the server side of it, without the 1 terabyte minimum file system size, like EFS, only with ONTAP's benefits, then I would advocate using this thing for use cases both sensible and profane. New for AWS CloudFormation. Quickly retry stack operations from the point of failure. Well, this is a surprise, but a welcome one. You can fix the thing that isn't working in your CloudFormation stack without tearing the whole thing down first is a massive time saver for those of us with iterative development practices, which is a formal term for whacking keys on the keyboard at random until the bloody thing works. How to accelerate performance and availability of multi-region applications with Amazon S3 multi-region access points. S3 suddenly has multi-region buckets. Okay, not really, but that's how it presents to developers and their applications. This is a fantastic release that's great for customers. Really, my only complaint about it is that the pricing is clearly designed by malevolent clowns who finish the summary of the non-deterministic and completely unpredictable cost structure with, in other words, the routing cost is easy to estimate. Please hire people to do that job who have Windows in their house, for God's sake. Solving interoperability in healthcare with AWS Marketplace. How about AWS solves for interoperability between its own service teams first? Announcing new AWS SDK for Swift Alpha release. There's also apparently one for Kotlin. To me, the interesting part is that there are still widely used languages that don't have native SDK offerings. Centralize or decentralize. This argument for decentralizing echoes why I'm not a fan of cloud centers of excellence. Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE, IoT mobile application with AWS Amplify, AWS IoT, and Swift. I like the demo, but it falls subject to the common IoT use case. To build this demo, you need a bunch of software, fine, as well as an Arduino device. It's more of a commitment than just the software bits. I still have an AWS IoT EduKit dingus gathering dust here because I have no idea what to do with it yet. Suggestions welcome, wrong answers only, works for me. And lastly, Amazon Managed Grafana is now generally available. And once you deploy it, you can get a dashboard that displays its specific availability. And that's what happened last week in AWS. I'm cloud economist Corey Quinn. If you work at AWS, please keep up the good work because as I always implore you to do, this last week, you made some excellent choices.
This has been a Humble Pod production. Stay humble.